Hi, everyone. Um, Hope everyone's having a good day so far. Thank you so much for joining us today for part two of our Navigating Mainstream Benefits training series focused on Medicare, Medi-Cal, and Covered California. We're really lucky today to have Emma and me, Lynn, from Bay Area Legal Aid to kind of do this training with you all. For those of you who were here for part one yesterday, this is going to be kind of a repeat, but for those of you who weren't able to attend yesterday's training, my name is Carla Carvalho, and I'm a policy analyst at Homebase. Some of you probably have worked with Homebase before or are kind of familiar with what we do. But for those of you that are not, we're a nonprofit technical assistance provider. We provide TA for COCs across the nation, and we work really closely with the Office of Supportive Housing in Santa Clara County. And one of the many things that we do is put on trainings on behalf of OSH, including this Navigating Mainstream Benefits series. And today we're going to focus on part two of the series, which like I said, which will mainly cover covered California, but also touch on Medi-Cal as well. So we're constantly looking to improve our trainings. So towards the end of the training, I will be popping in a feedback form specific to this part two later, so that I really hope that you all are able to, take a couple minutes to fill it out. It really helps us tailor our trainings and ensure we're getting you the content and the topic areas that you want and that, will really help you in your work. I do want to acknowledge, I went through the surveys from yesterday. I want to acknowledge that folks felt really appreciated the training, but felt like maybe it was like a little bit quick pace. And we hear you. There was a lot to cover yesterday. And I just want to remind folks that you will have access to the recordings of yesterday's training and today's training, so you can refer back to those whenever you need. And then if you do have any questions or something felt unclear and you felt like, you'd really like some follow-up, please feel free to email me, and I will provide my email in the chat a little bit later. And I can kind of work with, Emma and Lynn to sort of answer those questions that folks might have. So I wanted to acknowledge the input from yesterday. And thank you so much for those of you who filled that out. It's really helpful. So today we're going to cover part two. And like I said, mainly covered California, but some Medi-Cal as well. So just some Zoom housekeeping. And I also want to talk about Bridge a little bit, because I know some folks had some trouble like logging in through Bridge. So I will turn on the live transcripts. So then if you enable those, you should be able to get closed caption. Let me go ahead and enable that. We are going to have you all on mute by default throughout the presentation. If you have questions during the presentation, please just type in the chat your questions and your comments, and we will try to get to those as best we can. We should have more time to get to those today. If you do have any tech issues, please either direct message me on here, or you can email me at carla@homebaseccc.org, and I will be monitoring that email throughout the presentation. Let's say you get kicked off of Bridge or have any problems, go ahead and email me there. I did want to talk about Bridge for a second. I know some folks had trouble getting on it today. So Bridge is sort of where we're, the COC is looking to house a lot of trainings, both like these live trainings, but also recordings of trainings. So it's really good and important for you to be able to access Bridge and create your account and kind of familiarize yourself with it. If you ever have trouble with Bridge or just don't really, aren't feeling comfortable with it yet or aren't able to log in or create an account, please send me an email and I am happy to schedule like a quick phone call or go over like a how-to with you. So that way in the future, you're able to access Bridge. So for today's quick icebreaker, just to get folks like typing in the chat, please type into the chat your name, your organization, and what your favorite dessert is. I will say my favorite dessert is tres leches. I have not found one that I like here in Oakland yet, but I will continue to look. I'm sure there are places. So right now I will stop sharing my screen and allow Emma and Milan to sort of take over.
Thank you so much, Carla. So I'm Emma Dinkelspiel. I'm a senior staff attorney here at Bay Area Legal Aid's Health Consumer Center. And my favorite dessert are definitely, it's definitely coffee ice cream, but shout out to C's molasses chips as well. Milan.
Hi, my name is Milan Nguyen, and I'm also an attorney at the Health Consumer Center at Bay Area Legal Aid. My favorite dessert is pretty much anything with sugar, honestly. I can't pick. I really can't pick.
So we're just going to start out with a quick refresher on who we are for those of us who are joining us only for the second half of the training. We're the Health Consumer Center. We are a subset of Bay Area Legal Aid. Bay Area Legal Aid is an independent nonprofit law firm that helps people, low-income people in the Bay Area, access legal services, get advice, get representation. We at the Health Consumer Center are part of the Health Consumer Alliance, which is a statewide network of nonprofit law firms just like us who can ensure that people can get advice and again, sometimes representation and further assistance on their health insurance related issues, regardless of income or assets. We can help people at all levels of the income spectrum, at all levels of the asset spectrum. Please call us if you have issues of that kind. And we can provide services in a wide variety of languages either through in-house attorneys who speak those languages or through a language interpretation service. And we serve Alameda, San Francisco, Contra Costa, Napa, Marin, Sonoma, and Santa Clara on the HCC. We don't serve San Mateo County because Legal Aid Society of San Mateo County serves them. So, and there are parallel services in other counties, any other county in California. So you have a client who's just moved up to Wairika, they should be able to get just the same kind of assistance just from a different agency. And everything we do is always free. We do have immigration restrictions on our services. That's the one big reason we have to turn people away. But please have the client call us and we'll determine, or have you call us or your friends or your family call us, because again, no income restrictions, and we'll see what we can do. And we feel free to leave a message on our line, which should be, is that on the next slide, Milan?
We're just doing a short intro, yeah.
Yeah, so then never mind. The number is on the PowerPoint, earlier in the PowerPoint, but that's who we are. Okay.
But the number is 855-693-7285. Again, it'll be on the PowerPoint. All right, so today we're going to be going over Cover California and eligibility rules and just how it works. What you see here is the ACA coverage spectrum. Here you see income levels up to 138%. That refers to the income level, income eligibility for individuals for Medi-Cal purposes, and up to 266% here. It's Medi-Cal for children. And so Medi-Cal was covered yesterday. Today, we're going to be going over Cover California and the state and federal subsidies that people will be eligible for up to 600% of the federal poverty level. And this will include tax credits and cost sharing reductions. So what is Cover California? Cover California is California's health insurance exchange marketplace. What that basically is, Cover California has a website where you can go online, input your information to see what types of plans you're eligible for with your specific income levels, and to see whether or not you qualify for advanced premium tax credits or cost sharing reductions. If you don't have the internet, you can also call in and there will be customer service reps who speak English and a variety of other languages who can also assist you as well and help you with your application. So financial assistance is available through Covered California, and you can only qualify for financial assistance if you purchase your plan through Covered California. You can't go directly to a health insurance plan like United, Blue Shield, or Kaiser and expect to qualify for premium tax credits. You can only see if you're eligible through the Cover California website. So financial assistance for 2022, you can get assistance with your monthly premiums so that households pay no more than 8.5% of their income for their monthly premiums. Individuals whose income is below 250% of the federal poverty level will qualify for cost sharing reductions. That helps with copays and deductibles for the services that you receive. Everyone who applies for a Cover California plan will have 4 options to select from. These 4 metal tiers of qualified health plans include bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Each of them is assigned what is called an actuarial value. So bronze here you see on the slide says 60%, silver 70%, gold 80%, platinum 90%. What this basically means is that that is the percentage of the health services that the plan can be expected to cover. So if you select a silver plan, that means the plan will cover about 70% of the expected costs, and the consumer is going to be responsible for about 30% of the remaining costs. Platinum, the plan will cover about 90%, the consumer will cover about 10%. So the lower the actuarial value, the higher the enrollee, the consumer is going to pay. So we recommend that people usually pick at least a silver plan, and bronze plans definitely don't cover as much. Advanced premium tax credits, they're the premium assistance that people can qualify for that will help them pay the monthly premiums. And premium tax credits, they're paid directly by the government to the health plan. So the consumer doesn't have to worry about making those payments to the health plan. They only have to worry about the remaining premium balance that they're responsible for. So for example, you go to the Cover California website, you input your income information, you select a plan, it says your monthly premium is $500 a month. You qualify for $400 in advanced premium tax credits. The government will automatically pay that $400 to the health plan, and then each month you're going to be billed directly from the health plan itself $100, the remaining portion that you're responsible for. Right? Premium tax credits, the eligibility is based on your annual income. It's a little bit difficult because you are expected to estimate your own annual income for the upcoming year. So for 2022, the fall open enrollment period starts November 1st. At that time, you're kind of expected to guess what your income is going to be for 2023. And then anytime your income changes or your household changes, you are expected to report those changes to Cover California within 30 days of that change. So in order to receive these tax credits, you do have to make sure you file your taxes every single year. Then a reconciliation process occurs where they look at the income that you reported for the year and what you actually earned that year. So if you earn less income than what you actually projected, you will actually be entitled to a tax refund when you file your taxes. However, if you actually ended up earning more income than what you projected, you're actually going to pay back to the IRS the tax credits that they gave, which you technically weren't qualified for. So that's why we always tell people when you enroll in Cover California, make sure that you estimate your projected income to the best of your ability. And if there are any changes, report them to Cover California right away so that they can make those adjustments to your premium tax credits as soon as possible. We definitely do have calls from people who underestimated their income and then ended up getting a lot more income and then having huge tax bills that they had to pay back. And there's really nothing you can do because you were getting tax credits you weren't really eligible for in the first place. Cost sharing reductions are another type of subsidy assistance. This is only available to individuals who earn below 250% of the federal poverty level, and you also have to select a silver plan in order to get these cost sharing reductions. The government pays these directly to the health plans, and they automatically reduce a consumer's deductibles, coinsurance, and copay amounts. There is no end of the year reconciliation, so if it turns out maybe you didn't qualify, there's no reconciliation. Oh, but you don't have to, it's not going to be affected by when you file your taxes. So who's eligible for Cover California? Basically, everyone can use the Cover California website. So even for individuals whose income is low, they can use the Cover California website or the phone system to apply, and then they'll automatically be assessed eligibility for both Medi-Cal and Cover California. Even if an individual doesn't qualify for Cover California and they qualify for Medi-Cal, what will happen is Cover California will actually send their application to the local county office to be further assessed for Medi-Cal eligibility. And then for individuals who are above Medi-Cal income limits, they will be assessed to see if they qualify for advanced premium tax credits and cost sharing reductions. And even if they don't qualify for them, they can still enroll in a plan, but pay full price. So they get no assistance with their premiums. So right now, individuals who qualify for premium tax credits and cost sharing reductions are individuals between 139 to 250% for cost sharing reductions and 139 to 600% of the federal poverty level for premium tax credits. Because of ARPA, the American Recovery Plan Act, every household, even if you're above 600% of the federal poverty level, the premiums you pay will be no more than 8.5% of your annual income. So you still will also get assistance there as well. The income that is looked at for Cover California is based on the modified adjusted gross income counting rules, and Shalini and Emma went over that with you yesterday. For immigration, only those who are lawfully present in the United States can sign up for a Cover California plan. Individuals who are DACA, have DACA status, they are not eligible to apply through Covered California, unfortunately. In addition, there is another thing that needs to be considered when applying for Covered California. You cannot already have what is considered minimum essential coverage from another source. So if you have an employer who is offering you what is considered affordable health coverage, then you cannot apply for a Cover California plan and qualify for premium tax credits or cost sharing reductions. Affordable, it's very specific, so we're not going to go into that here, but it is according to the IRS rules, so you can find more information on the IRS website. Individuals who have Medicare with premium-free Part A, meaning that they get Part A without paying a premium, they cannot enroll in a Cover California plan. If they're already enrolled in Medicare Part A and B, they cannot enroll in a Cover California plan. And if you have a Part C plan, you also cannot enroll in a Cover California plan. It's actually illegal for Cover California to sell you a plan if you're already enrolled in these. And also, sorry, that went a little quickly. Okay. And if you are actually eligible for Medi-Cal, you cannot enroll in a Cover California plan and apply for premium tax credits and cost sharing reductions. You are supposed to accept the free Medi-Cal. Okay, so again, the income that Cover California looks at is your modified adjusted gross income. Your household size will be based on what is reported on your income taxes each year. And usually the household income equals the sum of each member's modified adjusted gross income. So if you have someone who is a tax filer and he has 2 dependents in his household, then their household income will be the total sum of all their modified adjusted gross income amounts. There are some exceptions. We do tell people, give us a call if you have any questions. So important things to note: in order for you to qualify for premium tax credits, you do have to make sure, and you're married, you do have to make sure that you're filing your tax returns jointly. You cannot file married filing separate. There is an exception for survivors of domestic violence and spousal abandonment. So just give us a call if you do have any questions. So this is basically the roadmap. These are some questions to ask. Can a person purchase a plan on Covered California? So check, do they have a qualifying status to purchase a plan on the exchange? What is their immigration status? Is it actually the open enrollment period? Or if it's not open enrollment, do they have a qualifying life event that would qualify them for a special enrollment period? Open enrollment, like I said, starts November 1st, and it usually ends January 31st of the following year. The next question to ask is, does this person qualify for financial assistance to lower their monthly premiums? So in order to get financial assistance, we already went over, you have to you can't have other minimum essential coverage, you have to be income eligible, and you have to agree to the tax filing requirements. And again, you have to agree to file taxes for the tax year in which you receive subsidies. If married, you're going to agree to file jointly with your spouse, and you have to repay back any subsidies that you received that you actually weren't qualified for. Okay, and this is the open enrollment period that we just went over. So open enrollment is in the fall, and when you enroll you have to enroll by December 15th in order for the plan to become effective January 1st of the following year. If you select a plan December 16th, it's not going to be effective until February 1st. So we encourage everyone to enroll timely. Another thing to keep in mind is that California restored the individual mandate, which basically requires everyone in California to have health insurance unless you qualify for an exemption. If you don't qualify for an exemption and you don't have health insurance for 3 months or more out of the year, then you are going to pay a penalty when you file your taxes. We referred to a special enrollment period earlier. Basically, this is a period that allows you to sign up for coverage outside of the regular open enrollment period from November 1st through January 31st. You have to have a qualifying life event, and that includes things like loss of a job, loss of your employer-sponsored coverage, you got married, you got a divorce, you gave birth, or you just adopted a child. So the enrollment period, the special enrollment period, goes for up to 60 days after the qualifying event. And there are some qualifying life events which do allow you to enroll 60 days before the actual date of the qualifying life event, like loss of employer coverage. So for example, if you find out that you're going to be laid off and your employer-sponsored coverage is going to be terminating at the end of August, you can actually start your Covered California enrollment process now instead of waiting until after the qualifying life event has actually happened on August 31st. And then you have 60 days after August 31st to enroll. If you are undocumented, you aren't allowed to purchase a Covered California plan. You don't qualify for premium tax credits, you don't qualify for cost sharing reductions. You are exempt from the individual mandate, so you won't be assessed a penalty for not having health insurance coverage. Undocumented individuals are also not eligible for Medicare. However, and this was covered in the presentation yesterday, undocumented individuals are eligible for free full scope Medi-Cal if they're under the age of 26 and over the age of 50. People who are between the ages of 26 and 49, they're eligible for emergency restricted Medi-Cal, which also covers pregnant people. Undocumented individuals can also seek non-emergency health services at a community health center or safety net hospitals. And keep in mind that everyone, no matter their status, is eligible for emergency care under federal law. Okay, so we have an example here, and I'm going to ask for some audience participation. Sean has been just laid off from their job. Their employer-sponsored health insurance will terminate on August 31st, 2022. What are some of the questions that can be asked to help determine what health insurance options they might have? If you have any ideas, feel free to type them into the chat. Give you about 30 seconds, and then I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, got one question. What is your income? Great question. Income, legal status. Good. When does your coverage end? Good question. But in this fact pattern, we actually do have it. It's August 31st, but good question, because sometimes people just say, my coverage is going to end and don't give you any more information. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next slide, which will have some more questions that you can ask people who require assistance. And these are the questions we ask ourselves. So how old is Sean? Because this helps us determine also if Sean is Medi-Cal eligible, which Medi-Cal program they would qualify for, whether it's non-Magi Medi-Cal or Magi Medi-Cal. Does Sean have any other health insurance? This, because sometimes people have other health insurance and we need to know, are they going to be eligible for example, Covered California? You can't have Medicare and also then apply for Covered California. Does Sean have any other jobs or other sources of income? This helps us, again, determine eligibility for Medi-Cal and Covered California with advanced premium tax credits and cost sharing reductions. What is your income, which Lynn asked, is a really important one. We want to know, what is your income for the current month? What is your anticipated income for the remainder of the year? If someone has fluctuating income and Medi-Cal, especially Magi Medi-Cal, they can use either the monthly income limit or the annual income to determine whether that person is eligible. So if Sean doesn't have any other jobs, doesn't have any other sources of income, and his income for August is going to say be a final paycheck of $100, he's going to qualify for Medi-Cal in this month. So he can use that income to qualify for Medi-Cal for the remainder of the year. Let's see here. Well, that's especially important because of the public health emergency, because if he qualifies for Medi-Cal this month, and then next month he ends up actually getting a job that pays more and makes him over the income limit, he can actually continue to have Medi-Cal until the public health emergency is over. And we'll go over those protections in a little bit. Another question to ask is, does Sean have any disabilities or have Social Security disability insurance? The reason being, if Sean already has SSDI, they may already have Medicare or be eligible for Medicare soon. So you want to double check everything, whether their income is going to be too high for free full scope Medi-Cal, whether they're going to be assessed a share of cost Medi-Cal, and if they do have a disability or have SSDI, they could be eligible for the 250% working disabled program, which was discussed yesterday. All right.
Thanks, Milan. So that is our quick overview of the major programs, major health insurance programs for non-employer insurance in California, Medi-Cal, Medicare, and Covered California. So what do you do when something goes wrong? Well, Medicare appeals are their own animal, and we aren't addressing those today because that is an entirely federal program. But for both Medi-Cal and Covered California, the mechanism by which the decisions, wrongly made decisions in those programs can be challenged is through a state fair hearing process. And you can challenge almost anything through the state fair hearing process. Application denials, application delays, being taken off Medi-Cal inappropriately, being moved down to a lower tier of Medi-Cal. So let's say you're on free full scope Medi-Cal and you're moved to share of cost Medi-Cal and you believe that that's incorrect. That's a situation in which you could appeal the amount of the share of cost. If you believe that's done the math wrong, you can appeal that. Action of a county, action of Covered California. Covered California calculates the subsidy wrong and you believe you've gotten that wrong. These are all things that can be appealed. I also want to call out specifically, we've noted on the slide that you can appeal a county action or a county inaction or an application denial or a delay. Most things in the, especially in the Medi-Cal program, there is a statutory limit by, the amount of time in which they have to make a decision on something. And if a county, so for example, you apply for Medi-Cal, you haven't heard back within 45 days, you can assume that Medi-Cal has denied you. Now, hopefully Medi-Cal hasn't denied you, right? But you don't need to keep waiting indefinitely forever into the future for Medi-Cal to get back to you. You can just go ahead and file the appeal right away because the delay is its own independent cause of action, and you can act as though they've denied you because they have an obligation to make a decision in a certain amount of time. The other thing that I want to call out here, flag here, is that there are a couple of Medi-Cal kinds of claims that are issues, network adequacy problems and denial of covered services. So if you have Medi-Cal, network adequacy is a concept under California law that says that you have the right to get care with, given that most people interact with healthcare through managed care plans, you have the right to get care within your network that is adequate, right? Like if they're going to lock you into a managed care plan, and most people are, then you need to be able to use that managed care plan to get adequate care. And if you can't, the plan might need to work with you to make sure that you can get care elsewhere. So those, speaking very generally, that means that you have the right to get care in a certain amount of time, and you have the right to get care within a certain distance from your home. And if your plan does not provide care in network in those ways, and is denying you coverage because you want to go somewhere out of network, well, then that might be something you can appeal. Same goes for denial of health services. If there are protections built into California law for all health plans that Medi-Cal is also covered by, that require the coverage of certain kinds of, medically necessary services. And so if you're being turned away, it may be that you have the right to appeal that. And for those kinds of claims, you might also have the option of appealing to other agencies, but we're focusing on state fair hearings through the Department of Healthcare Services today. I just want to make sure that people know that just because we're talking about this one avenue of appeal doesn't mean that there aren't other avenues of appeals for issues of this kind. And then finally, you can bring even seemingly small issues to state fair hearing. Your benefits identification card never showed up. The gender marker on your card is wrong and they're refusing to fix it. Language access problems. This is not a small issue, but I think it is something that people do not know that they have the right to complain about. The law requires California to provide adequate, language compliant services, access to an interpreter, documents in the 15 most common languages. Both state and federal law require this, and I can't tell you how many counties just don't. The state at this point is pretty good on getting these things, getting their documents translated in a reasonable amount of time, and but there are several counties even in our catchment area where over the years we'll hear stories of people saying, well, I asked for an interpreter and they just said, oh, we can't give that to you, that's too much trouble, or saying, oh, your kid has to interpret for you. That's not legal. You need to be provided service in the language that you speak. There are special protections for the 15 most common languages, but speaking generally, you need to understand the healthcare you're receiving. Okay. So how do you do this? You have the right to ask for an appeal on, like I said, almost any action or inaction based from the county, from the state, from Covered California. For eligibility issues, you have 90 days to request a state fair hearing from the date on the notice of action, or for the denial of health services, you have to request a decision between 120 days from the date of denial from a managed care plan decision. Those delays, those periods have been extended during the public health emergency. So we've got for eligibility issues, that's 210 days, and for a managed care plan decision, that's 240 days. And so while there is still a public health emergency being renewed by the federal government due to COVID, these appeal deadlines will be these longer periods. You can, the 15 most common, I'm seeing a question in chat, by the way, as to what the 15 most common languages are. It's a list that I don't remember off the top of my head. I know Spanish, Chinese, Tagalog, Korean, Vietnamese, I believe Punjabi, but this is something that the DHCS website makes available. So just take a look and they'll have that list for you. Something really important to remember is that if an appeal is submitted before the action goes into effect, you keep the, and you request aid paid pending, you check the box says I would like aid paid pending, you keep the benefit while the appeal is in motion. That's really important. If you're appealing a Medi-Cal termination and you'd like to continue to receive Medi-Cal while the state makes its decision, you need to file that appeal before the termination becomes final. So our example here, you get a NOAA notice of action dated August 5th. It says your benefits will terminate August 31st. You file your appeal on August 12th. You keep your Medi-Cal benefits going forward. State fair hearings are before an administrative law judge. They are they're more casual than a full court hearing. They're less casual than just talking to a guy. You should expect to be, addressing the judge formally and to present evidence, to have witnesses. You have the right to present evidence and to have witnesses and to provide testimony as to what happened to you. You have the right to have a representative, an authorized representative of your choosing. That does not need to be a lawyer. Lots of people have their IHSS provider as their authorized representative or their social worker as their authorized representative. That's completely fine. And in fact, beneficiaries can represent themselves and often do and often win representing themselves. The state fair hearing process is not meant to be set up to exclude people from representing themselves. It's more like small claims court than it is anything more formal than that, but it is still a formal hearing with legally binding effect. So it's something to take seriously. They usually take place over the phone, but that is something that can be changed based on the needs of the parties. So if you have a client who does not have a phone, needs an in-person hearing, that's something you can definitely request. The county or the managed care plan, the other side, Cover California, has the right to show up and present the opposite side of the case. Usually what they do is they turn in what's called a statement of position, saying here's our take on the law, here's our reasons for why we did the thing we did, and then you have the right to return the same. Once the decision is released, there's a 30-day deadline to ask for a rehearing for any decision you disagree with. So make sure to keep a close eye on any issue decisions, because that's pretty short to make sure that you have the time to ask for an appeal. And there are further appeal rights after that, but after that rehearing, it's much more difficult. So the rehearing is pretty straightforward. Steps beyond that are much more complicated. And of course, people should always feel free to call us with questions about state fair hearings.
All right. So we're going to jump into the protections that have been offered during the public health emergency, during the COVID-19 public health emergency. Right now, Medi-Cal beneficiaries have had the processing of their annual renewals paused during the pandemic. So what normally happens is once you've been approved for Medi-Cal, you do have to resubmit information every year showing that you are still eligible for Medi-Cal. And this has been paused during the public health emergency. Although Medi-Cal renewals are now going out again, the county does ask people to return them, especially since they do want to get new contact information from beneficiaries. But right now, yeah, they're not processing any of these renewals. So during the public health emergency, there was a prohibition on negative Medi-Cal actions. So basically right now, Medi-Cal benefits cannot be terminated unless the beneficiary passes away, they make that request themselves that the Medi-Cal be terminated, or they move out of state, or if they have long-term care issues. So if you have heard of anyone having their Medi-Cal terminated without their knowledge, or they were told, oh, your income went up, so we're going to terminate you, that is incorrect. Have them give us a call. Even if your income goes up, even if you win the $10 million jackpot, you cannot be terminated from Medi-Cal right now because of this prohibition on negative actions. Keep in mind, though, if you are a first-time Medi-Cal applicant, if you don't qualify based on your income, you can be denied and you can be assessed a share of cost as well. But right now, if you have Medi-Cal, you can continue to have Medi-Cal until the public health emergency is declared over. And that's still going to be at least a few months away because they have been renewing it every 90 months. And I can't remember the exact date that the current one is going to expire. It was renewed pretty recently. Okay, Emma went over this already. Normally, the appeal deadlines are 90 days and 120 days, but they've been extended for the duration of the public health emergency. So just understand that once the public health emergency is declared over, it's going to go back to the 90 and 120 days for the deadlines to appeal. IHSS appeal deadlines are 90 days. They don't have the extension for the duration of the public health emergency. Premium waivers. So Shalini went over this yesterday. As of July 1st, 2022, all Medi-Cal programs that had premiums have had their premiums reduced to $0. So July 1st, 2022. But before that, people were still paying for their monthly premiums. And during the pandemic, actually, people had the right to call in and request a waiver of those premiums. And if people did pay, they can actually get a refund of those amounts, and you can ask for those to be applied retroactively. So individuals would need to contact their individual Medi-Cal plans to request that waiver for premiums paid in March 2020 or later. And just keep in mind that COVID-related treatment is free to all full scope Medi-Cal beneficiaries. Oh, and Emma put into the chat, the current public health emergency ends on October 13th, 2022. So keep that in mind. You can check online to see if it does end or if it gets renewed on that date. Thanks, Emma. Okay. So the federal government increased advanced premium tax credits to lower the cost of out-of-pocket monthly insurance premiums. Like I said, households will pay, no more than 8.5% of their annual incomes towards their monthly insurance premiums. And for countable income purposes, stimulus checks are not counted for Covered California, but supplemental pandemic unemployment compensation is countable, although I don't think anyone's receiving that anymore.
We wanted to take a quick overview of some special features of Medi-Cal for homeless people. Medi-Cal, is set up to be accessible to people experiencing homelessness, and there are some apparently very stringent requirements in terms of residency and so on that most counties are actually pretty good about being ready to take into account, and that have improved over the last, I think, decade or so in terms of the way the state interprets these requirements. So we want to give you a heads up on some tips on that front. The first one is that if you are homeless, you more or less get to pick designate a particular county as your permanent residents for purposes of receiving benefits. And we'll talk about how that interacts with Medi-Cal specifically in just a moment. But the upshot is that if you are homeless and you live in a few different places, you know, you have an aunt's couch that you crash on in Fremont, you were born in Richmond, but you spend a lot of your time in San Jose, you can pick San Jose and say, look, I'd like to get all of my benefits out of Santa Clara. Maybe it's the most accessible to you. It's completely fine. You don't need to spend every hour of every day or a certain number of days per month in Santa Clara. It just needs to be true that it is your primary residence under some reasonable definition of the term. You do need to make sure that you do not, you know, if you then permanently relocate up to Wairika, or worse, if you permanently relocate to Wyoming, at some point they will say, okay, you do seem to have moved out of this county. So if somebody does move permanently to another place, and is no longer returning, that is a point at which perhaps things could be adjusted. But while you're traveling between different counties, that's totally fine. What's unique, one thing to note is that all benefits must be received in the same county. You cannot get your CalFresh out of San Francisco and your Medi-Cal out of San Jose. So the reason that this is particularly important for Medi-Cal is that most Medi-Cal recipients are on managed care plans. There, as we discussed yesterday, there's, you know, fee-for-service Medi-Cal, where Medi-Cal just pays for each individual thing you get, and you can go to any Medi-Cal provider anywhere. Or managed care Medi-Cal, where all of your care is managed by a health insurance company, and you go there to make sure that you can find doctors who are in network. And that is the majority of all Medi-Cal recipients. So the reason that this is important is that most Medi-Cal managed care plans are locked into a particular county. So if you are to talk about our, you know, example person from earlier, if that person chooses to have their benefits out of San Jose, they might choose that because they have a doctor who does work with the Santa Clara Family Health Plan. But if they have a beloved doctor who works with Alameda Alliance and they have a residence in Fremont, it might be better for them to get their benefits out of Fremont so that they can get their benefits with Alameda Alliance, which is the managed care plan in Alameda. There are a couple of exceptions. Kaiser, which does contract with Medi-Cal, works a little differently, but that is the case for the managed care plans, you know, that the majority of the managed care Medi-Cal experiences. Your clients can receive, must be able to consistently get mail in order to keep up with their Medi-Cal renewals, to make sure that they don't miss a potential termination, a potential change in their share of cost. That means having a mailing address, but that does not mean that they need a fixed physical address. That is another really common point of confusion, and something that I think was interpreted in an unfriendly way in years past. It is no longer the case. You can use general delivery as your mailing address. You can use a PO box. A PO box is definitely a great solution. A friend's mailing address, a family's mailing address. Or you can even pick it up at the county office. That's all completely fine. You can use a social services agency as your, you know, as your mailing address. Just make sure that you are clear that that is your mailing address and not your place of residence, if that is indeed the case. And then, as mentioned before, most state fair hearings are by phone. There are people who do not have working phones. That's fine. You can request an in-person state fair hearing, and just make sure that you do make that request affirmatively. And there is an online ACMS website that's the state fair hearing portal, and individuals can sign up for accounts so they can keep an eye on the status of their state fair hearing. The same goes with their benefits. mybenefitscalwin.org is where you can have an online account to monitor the status of your benefits, and I think people know about that for CalWorks and CalFresh. I'm not sure everybody who's on Medi-Cal is also aware that they can use that as well. Next slide. Great. And to establish residency, there's a lot of misinformation out there about what is actually required. You know, if any of you guys have, you know, there's a very generous definition of a homeless, I don't remember the term of art. It's like homeless provisions or agency or something like that, but an agency that provides services to homeless people in the community. We're a homeless service agency for that purpose, right? Like, as long as that is part of your client population, it's fine. You can write a letter saying, to the best of my knowledge, my client is homeless and primarily resides in this county. And that client can take it to the county office and apply for Medi-Cal in that county with that letter. You just need to be based in the county where you're writing the letter. Counties cannot insist that you do things in writing if you can do them over the phone for everything but citizenship and immigration status, because those are federally set and the feds are less flexible than the state. So you can affirm anything over the phone, say, yes, I live at 55 Hill Street or what have you over the phone that you would otherwise have to do in writing. They are required to accommodate you in that way. Renewals and redeterminations for Medi-Cal are one of the hardest things in my experience, not right now, blessedly, because of the public health emergency, but people do get, flushed off of Medi-Cal inappropriately quite frequently because of the barrier that the renewal packet can represent. They are required to give you more time if you need it for disability related reasons to complete the renewal. They are required to only ask for information they don't have in the file. And like as mentioned before, you can provide that information verbally and give your signature telephonically. So we encourage people to reach out to their local county if they're having trouble. And as mentioned before, language access should not be a reason that somebody is not receiving Medi-Cal. And please, consider filing a state for hearing request if that is the case. So we wanted to go through some real world examples to bring together all of the information we've discussed today. Just put the answers in the chat or feel free to raise your hand and we can sort of call on you. But let's take example one. We've got our guy Cy. He's applying for health benefits through Covered California. He's 45 years old. He's unmarried. He is not disabled. He has $138,000 in checkings and savings combined. His income is $1,200 per month in employment income. He has no other income. What is Covered California going to, suggest that he might be eligible for? Maybe let's start with, what are some of the things that you're looking at to figure out what he might be eligible for? So where do your eyes? Lynn suggests Medi-Cal. Any other answers? That is correct. It is Medi-Cal. It is Magi Medi-Cal. His income is below 138% of the federal poverty line. He's at $1,200 per month. He's not disabled and he's younger than 65. So he's goes in for Magi Medi-Cal. But if his income was SSDI and rather than employment, he might already be enrolled in Medicare. And if he has Medicare or if he's eligible for Medicare, he would not be eligible for Magi Medi-Cal, but he could get non-Magi Medi-Cal. However, he's right over the asset limit because right now the asset limit is $130,000. So January 1st, 2024, he can get into non-Magi Medi-Cal, but as of right now, he will need to spend down his assets to qualify. He'll need to, some of that extra $8,000 could knock him out of Medi-Cal if he was in fact disabled. Wei, what was your question? Wei, I can see you've got your hand up. Do you want to?
Yes, my question is that if you look at the slide 17, the income limit is the same for both people under 65 or above 65 or with disability. So how do you tell who gets Magi, who do not get Magi? It's purely because if I'm over 65, even if my income is within the limit, I still go to non-Magi?
That is right. Magi Medi-Cal is only available for people between the ages of 19 and 65 because it is funded under the ACA expansion of Medi-Cal. And so it uses specific rules that are tied to that expansion. So non-Magi Medi-Cal is the way that Medi-Cal was done beforehand, before the expansion. And so it uses the old rules. It's a technical back-end difference that does have an effect on who is and is not eligible for which program. But that's the reason.
Since the asset limit has gone up for the non-Magi, it doesn't make as much difference anymore for people who are over 65. I have two clients, they were denied.
That's right. It's a huge change.
It's a huge change. Okay, yeah. Okay, I got it. So regardless what their income limit is, it's based on their age, their disability status, whether they get Magi or not Magi.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
That's exactly right. Thank you for, yeah, great questions. Very dead on.
Thank you.
All right, for our next hypothetical here, Mark lives with his unmarried partner, Min, and their 2 children, Missy, age 12, and Molly, age 22. They want to apply for Covered California benefits. Who would be in his household for Covered California purposes? So in this scenario, unmarried, not registered domestic partners, but have 2 children. Any guesses on who would be in his household for Covered California purposes? The children. All right. Got a guess there, the Mark and the children. All right, thank you. 2 children on Mark. All right, thank you for that. So for Covered California and Magi Medi-Cal programs, your household is your tax household. Here, Mark and Min would be applying for Covered California separately since they're not married, not registered domestic partners, and their children would be included in the household of the parent who claims them as dependents for tax purposes. So they could potentially split the children if that's what they've been doing, or Mark can declare both of them as their dependents. So it just kind of depends on how they want to divvy that up. And if no one claims Molly as a dependent, she can apply for benefits on her own. But Mark can certainly claim both children and have them declared as a household of 3 as well.
Okay, so now we've got Sally, and she's 59, and her income is SSDI. She gets $1,200 a month on SSDI, and she's been getting, she gets Medicare and free Asian disabled, so that's non-Magi Medi-Cal for years, because she is permanently disabled because she's on SSDI. She then becomes eligible for pension income of $475 per month, and the county informs her that her Medi-Cal has been assessed a share of cost of $850 per month. She can no longer afford her medical care with the share of cost in place, and her assets remain below $2,000 per month. What can she do? Well, let's start with the question of how does her pension income affect her Medicare? So we've talked, the slide tells you a little bit about what her pension income does to her Medi-Cal. What does her pension income do to her Medicare? We've got a suggestion in chat to file in a dispute. Ethel says that the pension does not affect your Medicare. That is correct. The Medicare is unaffected by any additional income. It is only affected by the fact that you are paying your premiums each month, which automatically come out of your SSDI anyway. Let's go to the next slide. So as you see, Medicare should not be impacted. But her out-of-pocket expenses are still going to be quite high because Medicare Part B only pays 80% of her regular medical care. And the share of cost Medi-Cal will no longer cover her Part B premium on its own, right? So it will be, so her income will go down. Now, so there are 2 things that you should know about how Sally can approach this problem. So first of all, Ariana is right. If the state had made a mistake, if the share of cost was incorrectly calculated, the right thing to do would be to file a state per hearing. And it's always good to go in there and do the math, double check the math yourself. Anytime a client comes in with the share of cost issue, or have them call us, obviously. But because we can do the math in-house, because the state does make mistakes. Counties do accidentally count things twice. But let's assume the share of cost is correct, that the county is right to calculate it that way. Then right now, her Medi-Cal will not change. She should not be assessed a share of cost if she has been on free Medi-Cal, because that would be a tier down. And during the public health emergency, there should be no tiering down of Medi-Cal while the public health emergency is in effect. After the health emergency ends, so in October, she will need to address things so that she avoids having to pay a share of cost. So she can either find an inexpensive health plan and deduct the premium from income. That's called find a Medigap plan or a vision plan or a dental plan, and pay that extra small amount of money and deduct that plus her Part B premium from her income, and then she should be back below the ABD line, the non-Magi Medi-Cal income line. Or she can find a small amount of paid work and enroll in 250% the working disabled program, which we discussed yesterday, which allows you to have at the, very, very low premium at the worst of times, now currently 0 premium Medi-Cal if you have any kind of employment income at all. And then one thing to note is that even though the state will pay for your Part B premium if you are on full scope free Medi-Cal, you can still deduct how much it would be from your income because that used to not be the case. And then the state said, wait, this is outrageous. People are bopping in and out of free Medi-Cal if we deduct the premium, and then we stop paying for the premium, then we start paying for the premium, and it turns into this total catch-22. So the state passed a law that says you can always deduct it even if the state is already paying for it. Okay.
All right, so our last example here. Joseph is 67, is single, and receives $2,275 in Social Security retirement each month. His insurance is Medicare, and he pays $170.10 each month in Part B premiums and $60 in vision insurance. He has $1,800 in his checking account. Does he qualify for free full scope Medi-Cal? Any guesses? 2 answers. I see a yes. All right. Any more guesses? Okay, let's move on to the next slide then. So no, in this case, Joseph would actually have a share of costs because his countable income is not below the income limit for a single person under the Asian Disabled Program. I think it's 1564. Joseph can deduct his medical premiums to reduce his share of costs, but he actually can't get rid of the whole share of cost amount. So if you look at the calculations here, his gross income is $2,275. Then you deduct his Part B and vision premiums, as well as an automatic $20 deduction that everyone gets, and his income ends up being $2,024.90, which is above the federal poverty level for the Age Blind Disabled program. So his share of costs ends up being $2,024.90 minus a $600 maintenance need level, which is the same amount for everyone, no matter where you live in the state or the country or in the state. And he is left with a share of cost of $1,424.90, unfortunately. So sorry, maybe we shouldn't have ended on such a sad note. But that is how, I know, for Joseph, that is how Medi-Cal is currently working and how share of cost is currently determined. All right, so that comes to the end of our presentation, and we can take questions now.
If folks want to just raise their hand and then or write in the chat, and we'll do it that way. So I already see one.
Yes, I'm sure you had discussed it yesterday, but I just want to clarify. So for undocumented people here, if they are under 26 or over 50, they get full scale or full Medicare. But for the people who are between 26 and 49, they can get emergency Medi-Cal. Is that correct?
That is right. It is full scope Medi-Cal for people below 26 or over 50, and emergency or pregnancy related Medi-Cal between ages 26 and 50. And just important to note the pregnancy related because it is non-emergency pregnancy care as well.
Right. So they can just enroll the same way as they enroll the regular Medi-Cal. You can do the My Benefit CalWIN or just call to get on the Medi-Cal. Is that right?
I believe you should be able to do it on the website. I think that, if there's any trouble with that, going into the county is usually step 2.
Oh, okay. So that's good to know because then they can get the Medi-Cal card just unrelated, then they can get a free phone. Anyways, all right.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a great point. Yeah, I'm
okay.
sure that's
Thank you.
Kai Reed has a question in the chat. Are there specific Medi-Cal supports for foster youth? There are. They do have some protections. I believe they're eligible for Medi-Cal up to the age of 26, I want to say. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we can certainly send you more information on that later. Sorry, 1 second. I have someone knocking on the door.
And I'm just, yes, if young adults who are in foster care as of the age of 18 may be able to receive Medi-Cal for former foster youth until the age of 26, regardless of income.
Thanks, Emma.
There are a number of smaller and more unusual Medi-Cal programs out there. That's a big one for homeless providers to keep an eye out for, certainly. But there are also supports for people with breast cancer, certain extremely rare genetic diseases. There are, based on Medi-Cal based on diagnoses, where if your income is above a certain limit, but if you have certain very rare diagnoses, or if you have breast cancer, which is very much not a rare diagnosis, you can get care related to those conditions regardless of income. So that's something to look into, but it comes up unfortunately less often than you'd hope. Most people fall into the main categories or don't.
If anyone was having trouble raising their Zoom hand or the chat is not accessible, you're now able to unmute yourself. So if you do want to unmute yourself and ask a question, please feel free to. We just ask that if you're not talking to just mute yourself again. Thank you.
Lynn, you
I
have a question?
Are we going to receive like a professional development certificate or something to verify that we attended the training? Many of us are certified folks, and we need those hours to say we've done so many hours of training for whatever our credentials or degrees or certifications are with certain bodies that we are associated with.
Lynn, I can answer that for you. So you're going to be able to access like a certificate of completion of this training on Bridge. However, I don't think it's going to qualify for CEUs officially or anything like that. But you're able to have you'll have a certificate saying you completed this training.
Okay, and so may I ask where we would download that from the Bridge? We just log on to our, log in and then use our password and then just print certificate, or how does that work?
Yeah, it should be pretty easy once you log into your Bridge account. If you have any issues, please email me. And I can actually send you an email so you have my email, and then just reply letting me know if you had trouble with it and I can help you access it on Bridge. I'm actually not quite sure the actual steps of how to go on Bridge and do it, but I'm more than happy to walk through with it with you later on if you have trouble.
Okay, thank you.
If people don't have more questions, I'm delighted to wrap early, but I do want to take a moment to talk about something that we just didn't have time for, that is a particularly interesting little loophole that I think people don't take enough advantage of, which is spousal impoverishment. Which is if you have a client who needs in-home supportive services or other kinds of long-term care, so nursing home level care, and their partner has a lot of income or a lot of assets, but they themselves do not, or if they have income that if it was split evenly between the household could work that way. There is something called the spousal impoverishment provision, where if one member of a household is healthy and the other one isn't, you can sort of allocate the household money to the healthy partner, and the other one and the person who needs to receive services can be considered the Medi-Cal recipient in their own right. This is a complicated process, but it's just something to keep an eye out for if somebody comes to you with that situation, because it comes up pretty often especially with elderly couples. So it's if you see a senior couple and only one part of the household has money, has an income, has assets, it's something to keep an eye out for, because they may be eligible even if it doesn't immediately look like they are. Or they may be eligible for no share of cost, even though they don't look like they immediately are. And Carla put this in chat, but it would be great if you could take a couple minutes to fill out the training feedback form so that we know how to do better next year.
Yes, thank you, Emma. Yeah, if, we can like wait a couple more minutes to see if folks have any other questions. But also, you know, feel free to send me an email. I put it in the chat a little earlier and I can pop it in again. If you have any questions, you know, about today's training or want me to kind of follow up. We will be sending out follow-up materials to you all, including like a recording of this and yesterday's training, the PowerPoint presentation, and anything, you know, if you all think of anything else that would be helpful, just let me know.
Thank you so much for providing this training. This was super helpful.
That's
Thank
great.
you all for attending.
Yeah, thank you all for attending.
Lynn, for doing this. I will end the recording now. So.